Hello and welcome to the Worship Band Builder Podcast, where we're working with you to lay the foundation for skillful worship. I'm Eric Roberts. I'm joined by my co-host, Emily Roberts.
Episode 2.
And it's epic. Before we start today, though, I'd like to tell you about U Seminary. My friends there, they have an online micro-certificate program for pastors and anyone who really want to know more about their faith. And you can learn more and take courses at useminary.org. And on that note, you can also take some of the Worship the King courses right there on the platform. So we are excited to be a part of helping even develop that platform as it was birthed just about a year ago.
Yes, very exciting. And these guys have hearts of gold.
Amazing teachers, amazing people. Really, just check it out, useminary.org. And today we're going to be talking about what makes a good leader.
Okay. This is a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, why did you write this one in as podcast number 2? Let's just dig right down into these worship leaders and just really dig it out and say, what makes a good leader? Well, this is probably one of the biggest problems in all of ministry. When I look at any of the forums I've been on in the last couple of years for worship leaders, everybody's always just talking about all of these issues that really boil down to basic leadership. It has nothing to do with music. It's mostly people. And that is something I learned very young as a worship leader in a bad way, because I wasn't just born a great leader. I was just born, I don't know. I'm not
Maybe.
sure. You hear that. Some people say, you're just born, it was a born leader. And I do think some people are born with leadership qualities. And I do believe that I was born with some leadership qualities. I've always kind of been a leader, but I've made some major mistakes along the way. And it has been hard to be a good leader, especially on the worship stage.
Well, it's not something that is taught in high school or college. There's no course on how to be a great leader. And most of it, as you said, is about communicating with human beings. And I've known you now for over 20 years.
Okay, wait now, what now?
And
I'm only 20. How would you know me? Were we born in this?
Yes, we were born the same day, and we had our little baby conversations across the glass in
So
the
for 20
hospital.
years, since we're in our early 20s now.
And we still, even as well as we know each other, fail in our communication sometimes. So when we get out there with our worship team, it's very complicated, and it can be difficult to always know the right thing to say or the right way to approach a team member.
Yeah. So, when I started this out, this was totally unscripted, and I started thinking, well, maybe I was a born leader. Let me ask you that question and ask you just to send us your comments. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on a podcast, send us your comments. Let me know what you think about you. Think about you as a leader, because I really do think I was born to be a leader. But I've also struggled to be a leader. So, hey, I can say that if I want to. I know
it's all about you.
Yeah, it's all about you. But when you're called to be a leader, when you're called into ministry, when you're called to be a worship leader, which some of you are, those things it is scary. And I think there are courses. Now, there are probably courses out there on how to be a leader.
Maybe seminary.
Yeah, there's a course. There are tons of courses on leadership. You're not born and they hand you the books like, here, go be a leader. But as you want to be a leader, there's all kinds of stuff out there that you can learn.
Even if you weren't, what we're going to talk about today should help a little bit.
Yeah. And you're a leader in everything. Like, now that we have a 7-year-old son, it's definitely taught me a lot more about leading by example and knowing that people are watching you.
And that is the first point, leading by example.
It is. That was such a great segue right in there. And I didn't even think about that. But so, all right, think about lead by example. So Arrive practiced. We're going to shift this over to music, because now that we know all of you are born leaders listening to us, or at least those of you on my side of the table, Arrive practiced. Be prepared, be punctual, and be prayed up. So those are all things that you can do isn't that what you want your team to do?
And I think they all begin with P.
They all begin with P. I feel a new book coming on. But no, but for serious though, if you think about the things that you want your team to do and you're not doing them, then you're not leading.
Say that again.
Yeah, if you think about all the things you want them to do, like arrive prepared, prayed up, all this, be good, be whatever, but you're not doing them, then you're not leading. And I will tell you that, and I'll get to this later down here when we got the roll of the sleeves part. I don't want to spoil that too early, but you need to be leading by example. So whatever you think your best worship team member is, I think it's easy for us to look at other people and say, well, if everybody would do this, this, and this, and this, then this would be perfect. So start there, since it's easy to do that. Write a list of all the things that you think you wish all your worship team members would do, and then go ahead and put that list against your own actions.
Oh, that might hurt a little bit.
That might sting, but that's the purpose of thinking like that. And when you're able to do that, then you'll become a better leader. You'll become a good leader. In fact, if you can't do that, you'll never be a leader.
Those are strong words.
I'm making up I'm bringing some stuff to the mic today.
You're preaching fire and brimstone today, Brother Eric.
If you can't lead by example, and if you can't look at yourself, then you're never going to lead people. Let's go on to this next one, Emily.
Open with prayer, open practices and meetings with prayer, especially any time you meet with a disgruntled team member.
I've never met with a disgruntled team member.
I don't think I've ever needed to use the word disgruntled before.
I'm sure many of you send us some stuff today about disgruntled team members. We want to hear about that. Actually, I don't want to hear. That's all I hear about on the forums. All I hear about is disgruntledness. But this is good because I think Emily was a school teacher. I think we mentioned that in episode 1. And she has had some disgruntled. She was a Christian school teacher.
Yes, and this is such a beautiful example. So I grew up in public school and just had no idea what a Christian education looked like until I was hired into a Christian school and watched some of the other teachers doing it. And what they encouraged us as a faculty to do when it came time for parent-teacher conferences was to pray before we started the conference. Now, I was so nervous to do those first parent-teacher conferences, but I took that advice to heart, and I prayed with every parent, every set of parents that came into my room, and in all the years that I taught there, I never had a single bad conference. We may have had to talk through some difficulties, some things that their children were struggling with, but no voices were ever raised. It was never a me against them situation. Because I was able to convey to them through my prayer that we were on the same team.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, I have had some slightly disgruntled or hard conversations with worship team members. And, when you can just pray and it kind of evens the playing ground, it kind of changes things. Also, it's really easy to start practice and just go right through and just kind of, it's kind of somewhat legalistic to think like, if you think I have to pray before every little thing as a Christian. So I'm not for that totally. I'm kind of like a free spirit, but I do think that when we come to worship and you got all these people around you, if you can just say a few seconds prayer, you're kind of acknowledging why you're all there. And
yes, absolutely. It acknowledges why you're there, and it lets them hear your heart, and it reminds you why you're there.
Right. And also, if you've got time, some of the best times that I used to have with my worship bands growing up was when we just prayed in a circle. We asked everybody real quick if you have time to share, and we'd pray for each other. That prayer is really important. So lead by example, pray, open with prayer, and pray a lot, especially when they're disgruntled, but even just the daily stuff. Now, sometimes I'm cool with it, and just so you guys know, I might say a prayer like, hey, God bless this practice, thank you, help us, it might be like less than 10 seconds. But yeah, I'm a speedy prayer sometimes. But it's the acknowledgement of that. So let's go on. So definitely be praying, and that's kind of leadership for you. It's okay to show what you don't know. We talked about this last in episode 1, And we talked about delegating authority to others and that are more knowledgeable. And this is really important. If you can't do this, then it's going to be tough to be a leader.
It is. You just can't be good at everything. You can't be everywhere at once. I don't want to brag on Eric here, but
You should.
he is capable in many areas. And if you set him behind the soundboard, he could run it with excellence. If you put him on stage, he can lead worship, he can sing, he can play guitar, he can do everything, but he can't do them all at once, and neither can you.
And I can't do taxes. That's why I hire somebody to do the taxes, or anything that's. I can mow a mean straight line down the grass too, right?
Yes.
I can mow the grass.
Yes,
well.
I'm
I do that
so
well.
proud
So
every
I'm
time
so glad she
the
said all
grass
that.
gets mowed.
Yeah, we don't mow grass as much anymore. But sometimes, if I get really busy, I'll delegate my grass mowing.
There you go. And that could really genuinely be part of this. You only have 24 hours in a day, and maybe you don't have anybody else who can play guitar for you, but you might have somebody who can mow the grass while you're learning the parts.
Yeah, so it really comes down to who's going to mow the grass this summer.
The whole point of the podcast is just who's going to mow the grass.
No, but it is true. Just get people to help you. You're not a one-man band. Even though, for those of you that want to be awesome, sometimes you think you can do it all. But we're talking about being a good leader. And being a good leader is really teaching people and developing people around you to do the stuff so you can still look awesome. Don't worry about that part. If you're worried about not looking awesome, when you're a good leader, you'll even look awesomer. Okay, and that's going to be leading me to say, accentuate the positive in anybody. Anytime anybody does anything right, you got to be, and this is part of building a band, part of doing what we're doing, Worship Band Builder, telling people they're doing a great job. Even if they're just doing okay, you got to be like, you're kind of like a cheerleader to your team.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
They want that kind of feedback. And that makes it okay when you need to say, hey, I think you need to play that F as an F sharp right there, or whatever the case may be.
That would be important.
It's okay they're more willing to take a criticism if you've been giving them positive reinforcement as well.
Yeah, that wasn't on the sheet, but it is sort of tough as a leader if you're talking about being a good leader, because there are going to be tough conversations like, you're not playing this week, or there's just going to be a lot of tough even like you just said, hey, will you play the right chord there? You're playing the wrong chord. If you are not building up rapport, if you're not accentuating the positive, if you're not like Mr. Cheerleader, if you're not making them look good, then when you go tell them like, hey, you need to play, like, tune your guitar, they'll probably be like upset with you. And that's kind of what I hear about on these forums a lot. It's a lot of little people stuff that is hard, and it's never going to be easy. I don't want anybody to be listening to this today and thinking that we got these answers for leadership, because the leadership is not ever easy, and it's not, especially in a worship team, because I like to say musicians are weird, and I can say that, and nobody's ever disagreed with me.
It's true. It is true. We are just on our own planet.
Yeah, and being a musician, I can say that totally fine. Like, musicians are weird. They're just weirdos, And I kind of get that, and I can kind of speak that language, and I can kind of speak to and with that language. But it is weird. It's like we have these little egos, and we have all these things we need, and like we want to play on stage for certain reasons. Then we become Christians. We want to do that for Christ, and there's all these different things running through a musician's brain. Now you're their leader. You got to work with that. Understand where they're coming from, understand who they are. And that's why I think I see so many messy posts on all these forums. Like, all of this stuff is always kind of brewing.
Not just because musicians are weird, but because communication is so complicated. And if I could just go back to the prayer piece of this, pray for your worship team members on your own time. Write a list of everybody that's on your team and pray for them. Because if they're on your heart, if they're on your mind, you're going to be more compassionate towards them. You're going to be more understanding. If if they're not prepared when they come, or, maybe it gives you an opportunity to realize why they're coming unprepared or showing up late, or whatever the case may be. Praying for them can only help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Why
Why
are people late?
It definitely will help you.
Yeah. It could probably help you, but why are people late? We can't even do that. That can't be an episode. We could have
too many reasons.
100 reasons why my wife is late.
Hey, I am much better about showing up on time places.
That's true.
You have to admit.
That's true. Definitely much better in the last couple of years. I don't know why. I don't know how that's happened.
Well, it's funny because ever since I have had to get 2 people ready instead of just one person, I get to places on time more often than when I was just getting myself ready.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
That's true. And why am I always late? I don't know. I'll tell you why though. I don't like to be there on time, like early. So I try to be there on time, but then, like being there on time to some people is late. So this is a whole mess. But as a worship leader, if you're a leader, you better be there on time. You'll be being late.
Yes. And you're not late
stuff.
when you need to be on time.
Right. Most of the time.
You're only late when you don't really want to be there.
Oh, wow. Well, that's telling. If you show up late and leave early, then it didn't even happen. All right. So this is definitely something that we want to talk about, that I need to talk about. And it's about this. Be a leader. Roll up your sleeves. When there's work to be done, you got to be the first person to be there. And you're going to have to be the last person to leave. If you want people to follow you, you got to be there. You got to roll up your sleeves. And that's one thing I think that maybe when I was talking about being a born leader, I just work hard when I'm motivated to do something. And I put that in there, when I'm motivated to do something, because that's mostly
a very key element to this.
Yes. If I'm not motivated to do something, not doing it. And that's not great. Ask my junior high school teachers.
But anything that had to do with worship, when you were leading worship, you were there. You were the guy climbing underneath the stage to run cables. And maybe you don't know how to run cables. Maybe that's not a piece of it that you can do, but you can be there. You can show up first, and you can get the guy a cup of coffee, if nothing else.
Speak it.
You
could get you could be there early, even if you don't know how to, and you could be the one that crawls underneath there with all the spiders and cobwebs. And then the worship leader can just hand you the cables and tell you where to plug them. That would be great. So no, there's a lot of things that we do. Once you get on stage and all the music's going, the light and the fog, if you guys have fog, if you're cool enough to have fog.
Oh,
ooh, we don't have fog right now, but if you have fog, somebody's got to plug that thing in and get it to run. And
we're ever going to have fog.
I hope we don't ever have fog.
I don't need fog.
I don't want fog. Fog really messes up anyway, that's a different podcast. But let's say you have lights and sound and all those things. By the time that countdown timer goes off and you start the music, there's tons of work to be done. And it's never ending. So really what we're saying, if there's work to be done, be there, do it, get it done, and be the first one there, the last one out.
Yes, this is not the time to delegate and go sit on the couch.
Yeah. And so one time, and I'll tell this last story right before we end tonight. One time I was in charge of setting up the entire set for our big, huge production, Scrooge, and it was like the worst thing I did every year. But the last year I did it, I told, I had a Sunday morning announcement, and you remember that. What did I say on the Sunday morning announcement?
You said something like, all of you guys that keep complaining to me that you don't have any friends, show up, come and work, and you will make friends.
Yeah. And everybody was kind of like shocked that I said that, but it worked.
From the pulpit on Sunday morning.
From the pulpit. Hey, if you don't have any friends, it's because you're not doing anything in the church. You're not working in the church. And we had like 30 or 40 guys show up that night. That weekend.
It was a good crew. Yeah,
it really changed everything. And we just, that's what happens. When you start working together, you start getting out your power tools and doing all the stuff that you're always going to do. You're always going to do that as a musician. You're always going to be doing something with power tools or trying to build a stage or trying to hang lights. Just goes along with the production of being in a band. And it's, to me, it's fun. And when you're doing this in church, it's a real time to connect.
It really is. That's the time when you bond with people. It's when you're doing those little things that just have to get done.
Yeah, that's it. So do it. Get to work, be a leader. And if you have any questions, you can always get free help, one-on-one help right on our website, worshipbandbuilder.com. And you can also save 10% on your order of Foundations courses or anything if you use the code podcast at worshipbandbuilder.com. I want to say thank you for listening. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel and to the podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.